From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to Open Line, a full house tonight, and we are talking about a very interesting issue, one that has been in the news, the marijuana ordinance that is before the Metro Council. We have with us tonight people who support this ordinance, including the sponsor of the bill in the Metro Council. We will, on Morning Line, have those on the other side at some point. That will be next week. We just want to let you know that. But tonight we want to give you a chance to just kind of hear where they're coming from. Call in with questions, comments, whatever you want to do. Happy to have everybody up here with us. Thank you for being here. Dave Rosenberg, Metro Council member, the sponsor of the bill. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Russ Pulley, also Metro Council member, supporter of the bill. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And Cecily Shaman, founder of the Tennessee Cannabis Coalition.
Shamim, yes, thank you.
I'm so sorry. Thank you for being here very much. Thank you for being here. All right, your bill, Dave, why did you bring it forward?
There are several reasons why doing something like this is of benefit. It's an opportunity for us to give police an extra tool when it comes to drug enforcement. There are a lot of concerns with what goes on right now. For example, a young person or other small-time offender makes a mistake and then they're saddled with a criminal record for the rest of their lives. That makes it difficult for them to get a job, earn a living, go on with their lives. At the same time, it's a tremendous strain on the criminal justice system. It's expensive, and we're pulling police officers off the street for as many as hours to deal with the arrest, the booking, the paperwork, and the court time. So hopefully this addresses all these issues, works in tandem with state law, gives police the discretion to have this extra opportunity.
At this point, the police department said they have a concern with it. It says in there's language that says shall do this, and they have some concern about the language. The police department has raised that concern. Do you think that's going to be a problem for this bill?
We are actually working on some language right now to amend that so that we address the police concerns. So we're going to try to earn their support before second reading in 3 weeks.
Russ, I want to ask you, how confident are you this will pass? Is this something that is out there just to generate debate, or do you think it will actually pass?
I'm on the bill, and I'm not on it to generate debate and let it go away. I'm on it to pass it, and I fully believe that there is not only the public support, but we can garner the support in council to move this bill forward and make it law. Now, there's things you have to work through. As Dave mentioned, he and I both have been working with the police department on this. This is not something that was sprung on them last night at the council meeting. We've been working through it. I believe, it's my opinion, that the chief is generally supportive of this in concept. There are some things that we need to work out, and there's some language that needs to be dealt with to make them comfortable. But I believe I believe we eventually will garner their support, and I believe it'll come before second reading, and that's going to bring with it some support of council members who now are a bit skeptical. Also, let's keep in mind that this was first introduced at the council meeting last night, so council members have not had an opportunity to dig into this bill. They've not had an opportunity to vet this bill. It has not gone before committees, and so they haven't really heard from us on this yet. That'll happen at the next round of committee meetings, and I think that's where we'll really dig into the bill and see what people think.
And before I ask you your opinion, again, to dig into what this does, if you have a very small amount of marijuana, it would be the equivalent of a traffic ticket. Would that be an appropriate thing to say?
A parking ticket. This is kind of inspired by, well, it's inspired by several cities in Florida and around the country who have done this to address this minor offense in their cities. But the precedent, I guess, is littering. Littering over a certain amount under state law is a misdemeanor. You can go to jail for it. I think you can go to jail for it, but it's a misdemeanor. Whereas locally, we have a separate local ordinance that says it's a fine. If you drop a bag of trash outside, you get fined and move on. This is a very similar thing.
Which would really reduce the penalty that people currently face.
The police would have the discretion, yeah, but it would allow them to cite somebody with a $50 ticket for possessing less than a half ounce.
And all right, so what is the Tennessee Cannabis Coalition, and what is your position on this?
I'm the executive director and founder of the Tennessee Cannabis Coalition. We're an organization, we're dedicated to educating the public and lawmakers about the public health and safety issues specific to cannabis. We're supportive of the effort by City Council to move forward on this issue. We don't think it goes far enough, but given the political climate, it's understandable. But knowing what we now know about cannabis, we have a significant amount of data from legal states now that shows us that traffic fatalities have gone down in legal states. You have had in medical states, you've seen a 25% reduction in prescription painkiller overdose deaths. You've seen violent crime go down in legal states. So there's a lot of positive data coming out of legal cannabis states that we can rely on and use as a guide to move forward on these policy issues.
So, Dave, Councilman, do you see this as the beginning of moving toward legalizing marijuana? Is this the beginning of moving toward what they have in Colorado?
I would say that Tennessee is a long way off from doing that. Our authority as a city is very limited, and anything really much farther beyond this is going to be up to the state legislature to decide, and I would be shocked to see that come in the near future.
And that's been also a question. Do we even have the authority? There's state law, there's federal law, there's state law. Here we are, the Metro Council. State law prohibits, outlaws marijuana and has these certain penalties for marijuana. Can we as a Metro Council do this?
We're not setting aside the state law. We're not trying to overrule the state law, override it, get rid of it in any way. We're just giving police officers a different way of enforcing the law. So we're not trying to, overstep our bounds. This is simply another option.
What is the data? And I'll let either of y'all take this. What is the data? How many? You're saying, all right, police should have another option, that it should be on the level of littering. Are our jails filled with people? Does it ruin lives? I mean, is there data out there about how this impacts people in its current form, this law, the marijuana law? Who would know that?
Would you like to? It affects everything from housing to employment to financial aid. If someone has a marijuana arrest, all of these things can be affected, and it creates a significant burden on someone once they have an arrest record for marijuana possession or cultivation or exchange. And we know based on the data that this is not something that is beneficial. I mean, it is a burden to law enforcement, and we know that historically prohibition is rooted in disproportionate enforcement, particularly when it comes down to racial lines. And historically, when it came to prohibition beginning, Harry Anslinger, when alcohol prohibition ended, they wanted to maintain their funding. So they came up with cannabis prohibition, and they transitioned and pivoted into that. But what we know about the public health and public safety issues specific to cannabis, there's really not a justification for these laws, knowing what we know.
And yet, it makes people uncomfortable. Some people are uncomfortable. They think it's a slippery slope, and we're heading down a path that's dangerous. That would be the argument on the part of some. When you hear that argument, what do you say?
I say that's change. Everybody is uncomfortable with change to a certain extent. Anytime you change something that is currently in existence, there's going to be resistance to that. It's human nature. But this is also progress. Change is how you progress. Otherwise, we'd still be on horseback, and we'd still be the cotton gin. We'd still be all these other things that we've changed for the better. I believe this to be a change for the better. You want to know data? There's a similar law that was enacted up in Milwaukee, and I can give you some stats from that. You look at arrests. The total arrests since this thing has been enacted have been down 40%. Marijuana arrests were down 53%. There was a lot of people before this ordinance was passed up there, 55% of the people didn't pay their fines for small amounts of marijuana. 32% of the people only paid partially. Only 12% paid in full, and these were the fines that were going on before a similar thing was enacted. So that helped. There's a little. The data is a little bit unclear because there's a racial. There's a component about the racial disparity in Milwaukee and some of the things that they're dealing with from a community policing standpoint that we don't have to deal with here, because I think our police department's relationship with our community is much better. So they've got some problems to iron out in that regard that I don't believe we have. But I believe overall the data from Milwaukee shows that this was a positive step in that direction. You look at the data put out by the TBI about how many arrests have been made. What is it, 97% of all the marijuana arrests are for amounts covered in this ordinance.
97% of marijuana arrests are for, what is it, a fourth of an ounce or less? Mm-hmm. Okay.
The number of arrests.
Okay.
So
97% in Davidson County.
And like Dave said, he gave you all the reasons why. Many of them, what does it take, 6 hours for a police officer to be taken off the street? If you want to put it in economic terms, we're removing the police officer from being able to do his job to arrest somebody and take them downtown and book them and process them for this charge. Is it really worth that? And then look at the time invested by the prosecutor, and then many of these people will have public defenders and time invested by them. That's an economic disparity that is addressed by this. Now, we're only going to get in return $50 in fines, but those fines are coming to us, not to the state. And in addition to that, we're not spending an awful lot of money dealing with this stuff. And who really gets arrested for this more often than not? Those who really can't absorb the kind of fines that are being doled out for this.
All right, we have to take a break. Then we'll come back, continue the discussion. That kind of sets the table. So if you want to call in, what is your opinion? Let us know. There is the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. Be back right after this.